Dennis, you're gonna have to breathe again.
Oh no. I'll just play music a little longer. That will cover.
Welcome everybody to the live Raising Excellence while everybody's talking over the intro. This is beautiful. Good job. But I think we're all better hooked up now and there is sound. So hopefully people will rejoin and we will start over again. That's what happens. So today's topic is love versus fear. But before we go into the topic, I would like to welcome you all to this beautiful hour of your day where we talk about topics that are not necessarily popular, but introspective. And they allow us to really become better people and maybe stand up in the world a little better. So today's topic is love versus fear. And I'll introduce my team. Starting with the ladies, please welcome Willow, our trauma consultant.
So hi everyone again. I'm really glad to be here and especially glad that you guys can hear us. Hopefully you can. I didn't, think I'd need to add that modifier on, but, got to be grateful for the little things.
Yeah, we're probably going to end up maybe deleting that one that had no sound at all because that's a little pointless. But, we've restarted soon enough, so we're good. Next, we have Mr. Dennis Eckert, who can't wait to say hello, Freedom Facilitator.
Hi everybody, glad to be with you. Thank you.
Glad to be with you guys. Next, we have Mr. Michael, the community coordinator, freedom facilitating, opportunity ambassador. That's what it was.
I stole that from you, as a matter of fact. And, I also love the strings. I got my Joe Satriani shirt on, so play that funky music.
Well, I'm glad you like strings because I have a secret to tell you. But before that, I will introduce Mr. Tim.
Hey everybody, I love your intro, Dennis. You're gonna have to teach us something after the show.
Definitely, you're gonna do cartwheels and spin on your head and yeah.
Awesome. And that's all about love versus fear?
Of course, we love that.
So I'm told that it works now. So starting a second time definitely worked better for us. We also refreshed I just reinstalled a new version of OBS, so that could have been it. The issue, but it seemed to be working. It looked like it was working. In any case, so later on I have something to do with strings to tell you guys. But first, let's start with a little bit of an overview of why love versus fear. And Dennis had that quote. You can read it again.
Sure.
The whole thing.
So it's from Barry Long from Australia. I suppose the most radical part of my teaching at present is that love is not a feeling. Everybody suffers from love, or the fear of it, or the lack of it. Why? Why is love so universally and inevitably heartbreaking, whether it be through the end of a love affair, the death of a loved one, or being locked in with the habitual casualness or grim indifference of a partner? The answer is because we've been taught and conditioned by the world to believe that love is a feeling. Love is not a feeling, it's a sensation. Drinking water when you're thirsty is a sensation, not a feeling. Being in nature or swimming in the sea is a sensation, not a feeling. Lying down when you're tired is sensational, not a feeling. Although you may say that it feels good, feeling is an emotional interpretation of experience, and these sensations don't need interpretation. They are just good or right. Making physical love rightly is a sensation, not a feeling. So is the love of God. The same goes for joy and beauty. Both are sensational.
Nice. Wonderful.
That makes a lot of sense because so when you've suffered trauma, a lot of times it's hard to feel. You can feel sensations, but you can't correlate to a bodily feeling. So one of the practices is like, okay, you have this feeling. Where do you feel that in your body? So because they can't feel the sensation sometimes. That's what it was. So that's fascinating why people obviously, or not obviously, have been misled to believe that it is a feeling, because maybe that's the only thing that they're actually feeling in their bodies. They're not able to feel the sensations.
Absolutely. And so, why is it more important now than ever to create that feeling of love inside you, or to really experience a sensation of love, I guess? Because we have a
Because
lot
that's
of
all there is.
choice. We have a lot of choice to be fearful. There are a lot of reasons to be valid, logical, reasonable reasons to be fearful these days. And yet what we're saying is, let's really bathe ourselves in the sensation of love, or that's what I'm getting out of the quote, Dennis. So, why is it? How is it? How does that work? Why is it more important to be in the sensation of love than in the sensation of fear? Does anybody have an answer?
I don't really think you're open to learning something when you're in a state of fear. Now, if you feel fear, it can be a sign that there could be something dangerous, there could be an opportunity. But when that sign is like when you're just overwhelmed by fear, you're triggering the old part of your brain to take over and do something, take an action. And when you're taking action, you're not absorbing information.
Fear is the mind killer. You guys aren't familiar with the movie Dune or the books
Explain.
by well, I think when you're afraid, and certainly what is it, the Abdullah Ablagada or whatever that's in the middle of your brain.
Amygdala.
However you say that.
Like the amygdala hijack I talk about a lot. Yeah.
The amygdala is it's like sort of like here. And the medulla oblongata, I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that. That is actually your reptilian brain, and it is more here. It is your brain stem, and that actually triggers. It's a different part of the brain. The amygdala is like the emotional brain.
I thought that was a song by the Police, the Mula Englada or whatever that is. What was that?
Medulla oblongata.
Yeah, that one.
Oh, that one. Scene from a movie.
That one controls your breathing, your digestive, like your bodily functions. And your amygdala is the emergency brain, I believe. And I believe the limbic system is the emotional brain. And I could be getting those mixed up because I'm just learning them. But you were talking about the amygdala, I think.
I think that, just the animal brain inside, and essentially it's that fight or flight and the basic survival kind of instincts that come about. And when that happens, it shuts off your neocortex and all of your superior rational logical thinking. And unfortunately, that's why I think most people, most of the tyrants get people in fear, because they don't make very good decisions, because they're not really thinking, and they're very predictable.
Maybe we can phrase it. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Maybe it could be phrased that it shuts off the awareness of love, because if it is that love is all there is and it's all around us and we breathe it in out just like air, then it's not something that is really gone, but what is gone or what is not there is the awareness of it. So it's not something that's far away from us, but it's something that is there all the while. But being in that state of fear, reduces or eliminates the awareness of that, what actually is right here, right now, which is comforting in itself to know that it's here, because that also hints at the possibility of being able to tap into that like instantly, theoretically.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was to say, I'd also like to point out that I'm of the belief that the only emotion stronger than fear is compassion. And I've seen this play out right now with all the stuff going on. Most of the people who are still scared, they think something's going on, they think they might catch something, and they're really in a, they are scared and worried about it, the only time they go out and they don't give in to their fear is when they're caring for someone else. When they're going to get groceries or running errands for someone else, just because of compassion. So people will break out of their fear to be compassionate to another person. You see this with the mom override complex. Not complex. Mom override technique. There was a different word that I cannot remember now. But it's basically when you can't do the thing, but someone near you also can't do the thing, and all of a sudden you can do the thing for them because you can do it for them. You just can't do it for yourself.
So
Well,
here's a really interesting thing, because when it comes to love or fear, you can really only hang out on one end of that spectrum or the other. But mixing fear and compassion and stuff is not very easily done, because fear hangs out over here with all its buddies and love hangs out over here with all its buddies. And that reminds me, didn't we have a story for today?
There is a story that exemplifies this, and it's one I'm sure a lot of people have heard. It's the Cherokee tale of the two wolves. So, as the story goes, one evening, an elderly Cherokee brave told his grandson about this battle that goes on inside of people, just everybody. He said, "My son, the battle is between two wolves inside of us. One is evil, and the other is good." And the grandson thought about it for a few minutes and then asked his grandfather, "But which wolf wins?" And the old Cherokee brave simply replied, "The one that you feed." And so this was a battle between, like, which one are you going to choose? You're going to choose love or hate, good or evil. And I never was really quite satisfied with the ending. Yeah, it makes sense, but it doesn't seem to encompass the broader picture. I was wondering if anyone else had felt that way or looked into that.
I can certainly chime in here because there is a longer story, which is like I believe the original story, and that is that it isn't about feeding one or the other. It's actually about feeding both, because if you feed one, the other one is, you feed the good one, then the other one is kind of sneaking around the corners and conniving and waiting to get attention. And so feeding the both is really kind of where we come in, with the understanding that, we've got to look at both sides of everything. And we really do have to understand what is evil. And really, I think evil, there's a lot of different interpretations about evil, but if you look into that, evil is kind of like a warning sign of something that is within us, that it actually is something that we need to overcome. And so, yeah, in the tale, it is actually feeding both of them. Essentially, I guess, your attention.
So, Mike, it sounds like it's not all or nothing, right? It's not either one or the other. And then it also sounds like if you don't acknowledge your shadow, then it has the potential to consume you because it doesn't get the attention or the acknowledgement and the reality that it actually exists. One of my favorite authors said that the line between good and evil runs right down a human being's heart. And so it's a choice.
That sounds like that story.
I looked it up, and I really like the part about accepting, because there's actually a list in this whole thing, but I wasn't going to read the different lists of like which one is evil and which one is good. I can do that now, actually. So the one that is evil, it is anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. Aren't you glad I didn't extend the story that long? The other is actually, it's a smaller list, but no less meaningful. The other is joy, peace, love, hope, serenity, humility, kindness, benevolence, empathy, generosity, truth, compassion, and faith. And I really liked how the second story, which is the original story, said that there are some times where the good cannot succeed. The good one cannot succeed. Like it needs the other because it does hold attributes like your shadow side or the part of you that you don't like. It holds keys or tools that you've used for your survival, and they're very important to keep and keep those skills. You don't just have to abandon them and label it as this is an evil side of me and therefore it is not me. That's how you end up feeding the good wolf, and then you have the bad wolf who runs around and is plotting your demise because it never gets fed.
Well, or it eats you because it never gets fed. Like in that Destiny tale that I tell in that one story. Anyway, I'll tell you guys one day. Destiny's gift. But for love versus fear, like so it's like a scale, right? Like imagine if there's a rope, and on one end of the rope there are fear and all its friends, like Willow had, listed. So all this fear and greed and all that's and anger and resentment and jealousy and envy and all of that stuff is all on one end, and on the other end you have love and all its friends, and you have love and compassion and all that stuff that Willow was talking about. Now, whenever we are somewhere along that line, we're at one emotion, like about a topic, for example, about the current situation in the world. We're somewhere along that line. And we could be in different places, but when we're deep, deep into fear, we cannot possibly jump. Well, maybe in certain situations, right? Like something clicks and you can jump into compassion. But for the most part, when you're deep into like despair, compassion is very, very far removed from where you are or from where you're feeling, right? Despair is more of a selfish emotion where it's very self-encompassing, and it's hard to like feel empathic toward other people when you're feeling down in the dumps. So understanding that there is a scale and that you could be on this end or this end, it is up to you, and it is up to me, it is up to each and every one of us to move along that line bit by bit by bit towards love. Because love is where all the good feelings are. Love is where all the joy is. And in reality, 90% of what you worry about never comes to pass. And if you're happy and something bad happens, it'll still happen. But if you're unhappy all the way up to that moment of that good thing happening, you're just ruining your whole waiting experience, your own anticipation experience by fear and worry.
So we have comments from the audience. Chris McMillan would like to let everyone know that Bill Gates is definitely evil. He counts that as evil. That is a good definition of evil. And he says, Tim, you have a nice background.
And Tragedy and Hope also says
Thanks,
that Mike and Tim have great backgrounds. And and they also say I stole Lone Ranger's scarf. So whoever that Tragedy and Hope person is. Thanks.
Nice.
So what can we do to move towards love and away from fear? Okay, first of all, do you guys think it's a good idea to move away from fear, and why?
Yes. You can't
Yes.
absorb you can't absorb information when you're in a state of fear. A state of fear is only for when there is a threat. It is useful, but it needs to it's like the wolf. Like it is useful. You can use this in very dangerous situations, but when you're not in a dangerous situation or you need to keep your calm about you, it's not the best. Like you need to be compassionate, especially with yourself, and that's one of the hardest things. It's easy to be compassionate with people you care about because you care about them.
And Chris says that we need to face the fear and recognize the fear, which is true, but there's a back door. You don't have to go through it through the front door. You don't have to feel into it and feel how deep the fear is, go all the way to the bottom to bounce back. It's not water. You can just go, okay, there's this. What else can we do? What can we do that's positive? How can we be proactive? How can we create a better reality? And scorpions, you don't have to be afraid of scorpions. No.
Hey, they scare me too. They're like the mix of 3 of the worst different nightmares.
Oh,
But
Chris says he used to be afraid of scorpions, then he got stung, and it wasn't as bad as he thought.
So he had exposure therapy.
Is that what it's called?
Yes.
I'm really hoping that that's not the only way to get over a fear, because I have this deathly fear of being stung. Like, I'm not kidding. I
By
have
a
almost jerked
scorpion?
my car off the road because someone lit up a weed eater outside my car, and I thought it was a hornet coming to kill me, and jerked my wheel. It scared the crap out of me. So
But
I really
hang
hope
on.
that-
Hornets actually don't kill you.
But in my mind, that's what was gonna happen.
That
I'm
re-
gonna die.
That reminds me of Jim Carrey's commencement speech to that university back in like 2015 or whatever, where he said, "There's a big difference between a dog that's going to kill you and an imaginary dog that you think is going to kill you." It's a great speech.
I agree, but my brain at the time did not know the difference. And all I'm saying is I really hope that the only way to get over that is not to be stung.
So Willow,
But
in that,
the older I get, the more I'm coming to that conclusion. I'm like, I don't like this. I don't
in
like
that
this.
situation, though, what choices did you give yourself with your fear? What choices did your body give yourself?
Run.
So it was
Run
fight,
and scream.
fight or flight, right?
Straight flight.
So it turns your
Scream
brain
and
off.
flail.
It just turns your brain off. You can't think about any other options. And if you can put a little bit of space in between the fear and just enough time so that you can think, you might be able to create some other options for yourself.
Maybe that's what my brain is trying to do. It's like, okay, you want space, get away from it. Run away. Create space. It's terrible. I will flinch no matter
This is,
where
I
how
think,
far away are.
I think this is kind of taking us away from the love versus fear thing. But for me, I was afraid of all sorts of insects as a child. And then I realized that it was our society's obsession with insects being gross that caused me to feel that way. And I realized that a lot of the insects that even come into my house are actually quite helpful. They're not there to hurt me or injure me or make me feel uncomfortable. They're there to help me out. The only one I can't figure out the usefulness of is a mosquito. I used to not be able to figure out the usefulness of a wasp and a mosquito, and then I realized that wasps eat mosquitoes. Well, then ultimately wasp is my best friend, and then mosquito still has no usefulness in my
So
mind.
Agnieszka, what's the good use for a cockroach?
A cockroach?
Yeah. Other than they crunch when you bite them. Other than that,
Chicken
what's the
feed.
good use for them?
Step on
Chicken
it.
feed.
Um,
I'm pretty sure there's a place in China who actually grows cockroaches specifically for their fowl. And they have like a whole it's disgusting. It's so like it's so like creepy looking because it's actually clean for cockroaches. But that's not saying much. But it's like this building that's all dark and you just open it up and there are millions of cockroaches everywhere. It's like the whole floor is covered. It's disgusting.
Now that would be exposure therapy if you walk through the warehouse of cockroaches and just let them crawl on you. Then how could you be afraid of them after the fact?
this
I'm
form
not
of
really
therapy
afraid
seems
of
really affordable.
I think a cockroach is a good inspiration. I mean, those dudes, think about the role model that a cockroach gives you, right? So you try to kill that thing and it won't die. It can survive nuclear explosions and it's the most resilient, the most inventive freaking insect there is. And it'll figure out how to get through the smallest hole. You know what I mean? Like if we could all be more like cockroaches, I think we would do better. You know what I think? Cockroaches don't spend a lot of time in the fear end of the spectrum. They're probably well into love. They just love everything. They love garbage, for God's sakes.
They love to crawl around in your bed when you're sleeping. There's no question about that.
I've
They
never
love hissing
experienced
at you as
that.
They fly at your face.
I've never experienced. You guys are scary. I'm way too north for this.
Oh. They were terrible in the south. They're actually they're like palomino water bugs. They're technically not even cockroaches, but they fly at you and hiss. And it's the running joke is, yeah, everyone's a tough guy until the cockroach starts hissing and flying at you. But I would like to take that back. Like the only thing that's helped me with that fear was actually learning to appreciate them. And I started doing a lot of research into specifically yellow jackets because that's just what what I saw, they freaked me out the most. And learning, like having an appreciation for the way that they operate, their societal little rules, how they live their life and what their job is. It made me more hesitant to. I actually felt bad. I felt some remorse when I sprayed them with a bunch of chemicals to kill them because I was terrified of them. And I'd be like, I'm sorry that I am a terrible person and just killing all of these things, but this is my house and I'm scared of you, so get out. But it does help when you start to get an appreciation for things and you start to look at it with curiosity and learn about it. It does take a lot of the fear away. And it's not going to take it all away, but it does reduce it to where you can think a little bit.
Yeah, I've got a story along those lines as well. We live out in the kind of the jungle area, so we've got scorpions and spiders and ants and everything else, and we've got salamanders and geckos like in the house pretty much all the time. And so, my girlfriend at the time, she absolutely hated bugs, but she didn't like the idea of poisoning anything. And so she ended up looking on a YouTube for like this guy that does ants. He's got like farm ants, or he like makes an aquarium into like an ant farm. And man, I learned so much about ants watching this guy that he just loves ants. And before long, I mean, we've kind of come to the point that, and me as well, I used to like kill the scorpions and kill the centipedes and stuff like that. Now I don't do any of that, and I just kind of brush them on their way and make them, throw them off the
Centipedes can
side
be
of the house.
dangerous, though. Centipedes sting. The
Yeah,
little
centipedes were a
hairs.
tough one for me, but I just the other day I found a centipede. I scooped them into a little container and I threw them over the side, because we live on a hill, and I felt better about it, So it is one in which knowledge is really the key,
Yeah. So how can we make it so that love becomes our focus rather than fear? Like, I mean, in society where everybody's talking about fear, everybody is pushing for fear, how can we create that reality where that it's actually beneficial?
Asking questions. Start asking questions.
I don't know. The more questions you ask, the more depressed you might become.
Well, remember who you are, right? The same thing like always. Remember who you truly are, and then that can't be fearful. Sorry.
Go ahead, Dennis.
I was just like, reflecting upon that if you live in that awareness of your true being, and you are in that beingness, then you see the fear coming in, you can observe it, and by being aware of that and by identifying it as fear, okay, cockroaches, I don't like cockroaches and centipedes, and that make me afraid, but you're already not overwhelmed by it. So there's already like a little space in between, and just like the space between breathing in and breathing out, if you focus on that space, on that like split second in between, then that's where where freedom lies, and where's a beginning of something else, because you can realize, who is the one that is feeling the fear, who is the one that's being afraid, who is the one. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're not afraid or that you love them, the centipede or the scorpion right away, but okay, you can realize that the one that is feeling or having that feeling of fear is someone else. There's something else in that game, and I think that's like a starting point. And if you can improve upon that space and like increase that space and the time that you're seated into that awareness of your true self, then you would certainly uncover the love which is all over and which is always there, which has been just covered up by layers of fear. And if you little by little can peel off those layers of fear and approach the love that is there, then that's certainly the way.
So one suggestion is that joining Autonomy will destroy fear and invite love. Yeah. But I think that the battle between love and fear inside you would have to be at least mostly won before you reached out to places like Autonomy or any other place that will uplift and create a new future, a better future for you. Because if you're still really, really mired into fear, there's no way out. It's all black, right? So I know that every opportunity I have explained amygdala hijack. Ooh, that was scary. Probably wind. I know that every time I explain the amygdala hijack, but I think it's very important that we talk about the amygdala hijack. So what is an amygdala hijack? When you get afraid, fight, flight, or fawn, no matter which one of those you choose, that response gets you stuck in an amygdala, right? Have you ever experienced when you were worried about somebody, like somebody was late and they were supposed to be home already, but they weren't, and suddenly your thoughts started being on like a loop? They were the same thought. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. I hope everything is okay. I hope nothing happened to this person, right? And they start going into a loop. So as soon as your thoughts start going into a loop, that's how you know you've gotten into an amygdala hijack. Because your thoughts, instead of being in the frontal lobe where all the processing and analysis and all that happens, your thoughts have moved into a place where your survival is threatened. So there's a part of you that thinks your survival is threatened, so it puts the thoughts that are experiencing danger on a loop. But now in our day, like that was done back when saber-toothed tigers roamed the earth. Maybe that was good. Maybe that was useful because, we heard that rustling in the bushes, and we could remember that last week when Bill was eaten by a saber-toothed tiger, there was the same rustling, right? So next week, as soon as you hear the rustling in the bushes, you're like, oh shit, Bill died last week. So maybe I should back off, right? But these days we have these repetitious thoughts of silly things like, oh, what am I going to get for Valentine's? Or am I going to get a raise next week? Oh, I hope they like me enough for a raise. And we go into this fight or flight so often that it's hard to really think of anything else. And it's hard to blossom and grow as a human being if you're constantly in the back part of your brain, if you're constantly on a loop trying to freak out about something, right?
So you basically become the pain, you become the fear, you start to identify with that.
The world closes in. Do you remember something like that happening to you, where you started thinking in repetition, in circles?
Oh, it happens to me almost every morning if I wake up, like say my husband is making coffee and he accidentally lets the cabinet not slam. He's not slamming anything, but he'll let it shut without gently pushing it in there. If I hear stuff like that, or I hear a cup hit the counter and I wake up to that, my body will be tense, my heart rate will be up, I will be breathing very shallow and oh crap, something bad's about to happen. What did I do? What have I done? And I run through the list of all the things and I'm like, why am I doing this? This is what people who are living in abusive situations are doing. And I'm like, that's not my situation. What's going on here? Why am I so anxious? But actually, when you were talking about that, I can feel my thoughts, they don't feel like they're up here. It doesn't feel like I'm focusing with this part of my brain. It's in the back of my mind. That's the back of my mind is actually a sensation that you're getting, that you're turning into a feeling. Because you have to make it a bodily feeling, a bodily sensation to be able to understand it. So yeah, I'll feel it in the back of my mind, just churning and going back and forth. But it happens quite often, even in conversations. If I think someone is, if I don't feel fully heard and I was expecting to be fully heard, that can trigger the amygdala hijack, where it's oh, well, this person obviously doesn't care about me and I need to hammer them until they either decide to care or they decide to leave.
Oh, I've had that when I was talking to my partner and suddenly there was this I don't know what it was, maybe a fear that I had deep inside, because I was oh my gosh, he doesn't understand me. If he doesn't understand, then it runs really fast. If he doesn't understand this, he'll not understand anything. And if he doesn't understand anything, there's no point in being in a relationship with this person. And if there's no point in being in a relationship with this person, I might as well run away. And if I run away, I might as well start packing. And where's my suitcase? And it goes from what to where's my suitcase in really, really close, like super fast, right? When it's like a trigger or something. Another example of that I remember is when I used to go to interviews. I used to be really scared of interviews, right? And then one time I worked with a friend who was a therapist of some sort. She's like, well, what will happen if the interview goes bad? And basically what it was is, if the interview goes bad, they're not going to like me. They're not going to hire me. And if they don't hire me, nobody will hire me. If nobody will hire me, then I'll be a complete loser. And if I'm a complete loser, nobody will ever like me and nobody will ever be my friend. And if nobody ever likes me, and I don't have any money, I'm going to end up living under a bridge. So it went from, I'm stressed out about the interview, I'm going to live under a bridge. That was my idea of interviews. But
it usually has to do with an association just like that, where you're like, I didn't get the job, therefore that means that I'm going to be homeless because I can't do anything right at
because
all.
I'm useless. Yeah, of course.
So it turns into a threat to either, it's usually a threat to your shelter, so your ability to stay in a safe home, your ability to eat and drink clean water, your ability to sleep, which depends on both of those things, like food and a place to like feel safe, and your social interactions. Now, from infancy to, puberty or past puberty, your social interactions are usually your family and your friends, and then beyond that it becomes your intimate partners along with your friends and your family.
See, but it doesn't even have to be threatened. Your actual livelihood doesn't have to be threatened. You could be living in a mansion and you could be completely supported and not have to work. But if you want to get something, and then that is what you're reaching for, what you're desiring, if that feels like, okay, I have to do this or else, that may bring those desperation feelings, even if logically everything is taken care of.
It definitely could be a perceived threat. You see this with children who are told, don't you dare tell the school that daddy beats mommy, or I'll do it to you. The kid's not actually being beat. Maybe they're not even home when it happens. They just happen to, see mom or dad with a new bruise, and they're like, oh, I guess they must have hit another doorknob today. It can be a perceived threat. It can be something that you think is going to happen. It usually is. It's usually not a strict case of someone came up and violated me. Like they took my stuff or they stabbed me or, whatever. It's usually not that obvious. It's usually an association that they have with that, with what happened. A person who has just been mugged is going to have a different reaction to that than the person who has been repeatedly beaten before and then they've been mugged. They're most likely going to think, I keep getting mugged because people can see how weak I am. Look at all this evidence that I have, backing this up.
But you know what the crazy thing is? If you put something in your head, like the car thing, right? If you put something in your head, doesn't matter what it is. If it's like, oh, I can't do anything right, or oh, everybody will make fun of me or whatever, those things will end up happening. You will create a situation where that happens. Like if somebody's really afraid of being made fun of, usually they'll trip and fall face first into ketchup or something. And other people maybe don't even mean to and don't even think that they're funny and stuff, but they're sort of compelled to laugh when these situations happen. And so therefore that person's worst fear becomes a reality because that's what they're really, really focusing on, right? Versus if you're really, really focusing on, oh, you know what, this day will be good. Somebody will buy me coffee. I used to do that. Somebody will buy me coffee today. I know, I can feel it. Somebody, and most of the time I got a coffee or something. Lunch. What are you thinking was something? Spanking? No. So.
I'd like to offer perspective.
Okay.
Because the love versus fear. What if, in order to experience love, to experience that what is, and love is all over the place, it's inside, outside, it's everywhere you go. In order to, if you don't live, if your beingness is not in that awareness of the love that is there, then you would need what in order to reach there? You would
Proof.
need fear. You would need fear in order to cut through the layers of fear, in order to have that sensation of a difference, you know. So you have fear, you have the centipede, you have the scorpion, you have Bill the gatekeeper, you have, you know, all the trouble that is going on, which you need, you need the shade in order to be able to distinguish the shade from the light. So the fear is then there. It's not like a versus thing, but if you cut through the layers, and you are in that state, in that beingness of love, then the realization is that really truly there is no fear, because fear then becomes love, because fear is just another nuance of that love, because the love, how would you say, veils itself as fear in order for you to be able to come out of that state of unawareness of love.
See, like a contrast that shows you the light through darkness.
Yeah.
I was thinking, like, that made me think of how people who have nothing in their life left to live for, they don't have a lot of fear. I've not met many people who are afraid or live in fear all that, time. They still have good things. And I just realized, actually, maybe you can only have fear if you do love something. Like, because if there's nothing left to love, I just don't understand what you would have to fear. What is there to fear at that point?
Well, I don't know. Because, like, in the movies, the people have nothing left to lose. They don't seem to have much fear. Right?
No.
But is that
They get
reality?
rich overnight, though.
What'd you say,
They
Tim?
can get rich overnight, though, in the movies.
True.
And then
But the
they
darkness
have happy
really,
endings.
darkness is just the absence of light, right? So you have light and you have the absence of light, but it's not a thing in itself.
So,
I've always liked the quote that light only shines the brightest in the darkest of nights. Made me feel a lot better about my life.
So ever since I came up with the topic for this week, I've had this song stuck in my head, and a friend of mine sings it, and he's a really cool dude. He lives in Vancouver, and his name is Nathan Aswell, and he plays this really cool instrument. It's like an 8-string guitar, but it's called the stick, I think, and it's just like a tiny little bass part, but it's a big stick with lots of strings. He's a very cool dude. So I wanted to play you guys a clip from this song, and maybe you can tell me if you think it's cheesy. I quite like Nathan. I think he's very cool. So there we go. I'm gonna press play.
It said 2 roads are calling out to me, one of danger, one of certainty. So I've decided, if it's fear or love, I choose love. Only 2 roads, it comes down to this, one of suffering, one of gentle bliss. I've decided, if it's fear or love, I choose love. As sure as sunrise, we are all meant to be on this earth, each an artisan of the master plan, humanity. Let's stand together and reclaim what's been ours since our birth, our right to be you and me completely. There
All right, that's enough, right? But it was great. I really like this song, and yeah, it's been playing in my head ever since. What do you guys think?
I'd say it's totally cheesy, but I dig it.
It's awesome.
I was just like, yeah, I like this. Makes me feel like I want to have a little pep in my step walking down the street.
Well, Nathan is part of the Posy Music Awards, which is like this international music competition for just positive music, and he like ranks high with those guys there. So I'm quite proud of being his friend. But They have some really cool. I always for me it's very important the words of the song, and I can't really listen to songs with stupid meaning. But a lot of the Posy music words, like maybe they're a little cheesy, but I quite like them. What do you boys think?
I couldn't hear it for some reason.
Ah.
So
I couldn't hear it either.
we'll have to get the link.
Well, I shared the link with you a couple days ago, but it's okay.
I just muted myself and turned on the live stream, so.
The girl.
So that sounds like something.
I heard it the other day, and I'd just say, I think, it doesn't matter if it's cheesy or not. It's just about how you feel about it, and the fact that you've already kind of given us a indication of how you feel. I think it's important, and it gives the whole thing character. Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry I cut you off.
No, it's just not switching to you, Mike, for some reason. Every time you speak, somebody else is on the screen.
No, you didn't cut me off at all. I'm just curious if you can put the link in the show notes to the Posy music that we can go and investigate.
Oh, sure. I can definitely do that.
I liked that the sensation that I got, and I love that now I have a new, like, 2 little terms to play around with about feelings and sensations. So I'm trying to get it right, but I don't think I am. Maybe that's just self-doubt. But when I was like, like a little pep in my step when I'm walking down the street, my chest wants to do this. And I want to walk like this. Where it's like, yeah, my heart is open and I'm ready for love. And it's like, so it's like, it feels cheesy. It does. It feels cheesy to me. It's like, but it does.
But why
have
do you
bodily
think maybe the
sensation.
reason it feels cheesy is because we are bombarded with all sorts of propaganda, not to be happy, not to be open, not to be yourself, not to really express what's honestly inside you, be a little bit more tight and don't share everything and don't tell anybody, and people end up having these tiny little lips because they keep like holding back their words and they walk along like this, right?
Is that where we got the duck face from?
No, this is worse than the duck face.
What is that? Is that a fish face?
I don't think, I see that a lot when I do face reading. People totally flatten their lips. And it's not because your lips are small. Nobody has small lips. The lips are just a factor of how much your skin is turned up a little bit on the bottom and on top. So as you release the tension in your lips, as you stop biting your words, your lips will come out too. Mine were smaller too before.
Is that why women use lipstick?
I don't
To
know.
highlight. I think it
To
is
pretend they're more
because it makes
outspoken than they are in real life.
it enlarges the lips or the perception of the lips, right? So that has something to it.
Yeah.
I believe and I'm getting this from Jordan Peterson when he was talking about the red. Actually, it's supposed to be the blood rushing to the surface, where your blushes and your cheeks and all that, and various other, colored parts of your body. But it's supposed to signal arousal and that you are a mate, a potential mate. It's like peacocking,
It's like a fishing lure.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't
He's a little
like that.
red.
I'm like, wait, yes. I'm like, no.
Like a
Yes.
shrimp on a hook or something, right?
Absolutely.
You have ruined makeup. I wonder why other than like kissing, but I wonder why the lips are such a visual signal. Maybe it is because I know that like the big hips was always supposed to be like, childbearing hips. She can make a lot of babies with those, healthy babies. From a biological standpoint, I wonder why we do have an attraction towards the mouth that would be a physical signal. I wonder if it is because men maybe like, not the require is not the right word, are looking for women who are like outspoken enough to be able to challenge them.
But also the other thing, without being outspoken, when you have lips that are very tight like that means you're uptight, right? So you probably wouldn't put out. So if you
That is
enlarge your lips, you're more attractive because you're more likely to be openly engaged in variety of conversations.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that aspect.
So it doesn't mean that if you have big lips, that you have the ability to nag for 40 years.
It does. It means that
Okay.
you are
Just to check.
well, the bottom lip specifically is about speaking out, right? So
Yes.
so if the bottom lip is large, that means you can fight for your rights and fight for others and speak up and speak out and stuff. But a lot of people, what they have is a combination of a large bottom lip and a tight top lip, which means that they can speak out, but they're holding themselves back anyway. They're holding back their innermost feelings, and they can maybe fight for others' rights, but not their own. It's like a tricky thing.
I mean,
I
if you
feel
don't have a
very
stiff upper
personally
lip.
attacked.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
exactly.
sorry. Was he talking about you?
I was just about to ask that. I was about to be like, so, like, my bottom lip is much larger than my top lip. I've always hated that because I've always, you can't just be like, yeah,
Yeah, you can. So first thing, you can relax those muscles by doing a little bit of a massage of the upper lip. That'll help your lip come out a little bit more. And also expressing yourself, so this bow of the lip, I know this is love versus fear, and we're talking about psychosomatic therapy and face reading, but this bow of the lip is all about sensuality and creativity and all that. But if you're still holding yourself back, even as you're being creative, it probably won't come out. So a little massage, a little creativity, a little sex, and it'll all come out.
That is fascinating. I just watched the documentary Dosed, and it was about a girl who was a heroin addict, and she did the ibogaine. Is it called ibogaine? I think it's called ibogaine. Treatment, and afterwards, she ended up lying about how much heroin she did, and she was doing twice the amount that she actually told him. So the first treatment did not work that well. But when it was like in the process of working, she like reverted to a child, and someone said, it's almost like she's had a brain injury. But I noticed she kept doing this thing. She kept going, and she'd like do this. She'd not pick, but like she'd pull it out, pull the skin out, stretch it, move it around just like a small child would. And the interpretation that you just gave, that makes a lot of sense if you're trying to reset your neural pathways,
remove the tension. Yeah,
and to remove the tension.
But all of that are exercises for loosening the lips. That's supposed to loosen those muscles here too. We have a request that I am willing to fulfill. So one of our new listeners, called Tragedy and Hope, has just made a suggestion about a song that we should play. And normally I probably wouldn't give in to a suggestion, but this person has a convincing argument. And they say that an Autonomy Season 3 student, Ben Dasher, has created this song, and it's funny AF, or as shit. So, so I think
why'd you replace the AF with the another actual cuss word?
I wanted to be accurate to the message from the listener, okay? So I am going to attempt to create a reality in which we play a song we're not prepared to play. Is that going to be difficult?
Triggering complexity.
Triggering complexity. Oh, it actually works. Look at this. The boys might have to tune in. Oh, why am I not hearing it?
I have to be honest, I happen to believe right now that the coronavirus was no accident, and I can't wait for too long to speak up, 'cause by tomorrow I may believe again that it came from a bad enemy market. Cat, get the f*** away from my computer, thank you. don't know fact and fiction now. Neither do you. And I have to be honest, I don't know what's gonna come. And when I look back later, I'm gonna know that I didn't know. And that I was a little scared, 'cause everyone is a little scared. But I can breathe with that, and I can carry on. Carry on. Keep calm and carry on. Keep calm and carry on.
That's nice. Okay, where did you guys go? There we go. Hi. That was fun. That was fun.
That was hilarious. I loved that. I could not stop laughing the entire time. I was like, am I the only one that can hear this? Am I the only one that thinks it's funny? Did I misunderstand?
I was told that the show today is hilarious, and I was also told that it sounds good, and that we triggered complexity successfully. Yay!
Also, Chris McMillan suggested that we play Barbie Girl by Aqua.
And that's a no. That's a no.
Aw.
That's a no. Love versus fear. Play it on your own show. Jeez. I mean, Willow, you can play it next week on your own show.
Just for that, I'm going to like hijack the intro. We're going to start out with, I'm a Barbie Girl.
There you go. There you go. I actually
I will
quite
not
like,
do that.
I love Aqua. I think they're a great band, especially for cleaning.
I love the, there's a guy version, and he like jumps in the middle. He's like, come on, Barbie, let's go party. But it's like super, super heavy metal. It's like a heavy metal version of Barbie Girl. I love it.
Well, all the people in Aqua are actually classically trained musicians who are just having a ball playing that crazy music. In any case, we have one more order of business before we close out the thing today. And that is the Minute of Shame. Go, Mike.
The minute of shame. What?
When is this? Oh, okay.
You know what
We
it
don't
is.
shame.
Talk about
We don't
journal.
shame on here.
No? Oh, that's the fear aspect. Okay. The Minute of Compassion from Mike Nimitz.
All right. Well, I'll just I'll keep it real quick. Does anybody want to talk about journaling? Does anybody have any updates about their journal?
I have been tempted to begin my journaling again. I've been having like a couple of like crazy dreams that have been pretty vivid and recallable. And I have thought to myself throughout the day, like, I should really write that down before I forget it. I have not managed to get there though, so.
I thought it was kind of interesting that, you know, in your presentation last week, we talked a little bit about the lady from the trauma lady and her idea.
The crappy
of,
childhood
doing
fairy.
Doing the daily like assessment. And I think it had to do with fear, right? The fear assessment.
Yeah, it was a daily negativity dump is basically what I started calling it. I think she just calls it her daily practice. What she does is she writes out every morning her resentments and fears. And if it's like a fear, so if it's like I woke up and I fear that there is no lunch meat to make a sandwich today and I really wanted a sandwich. If it's a resentment, it'll be like, I resent Bill for eating the last of the lunch meat and not telling me. So like she also ties it into like resentments are fears. So it could be like, I fear that I resent this person because of this. And it's just a safe place to write down all your trivial, non-trivial. It actually ends up being a list of just mixed between like, oh, that's something I really, really am afraid of, like a deep-seated fear, and oh, that's just a trivial fear that I have today that, you know, tomorrow it may not even matter. just getting it all out and putting it in a place so that your brain can realize that it has now done that and it's now regulated.
Yeah, I think it's just another perfect example of like creating a habit like journaling as a way of solving a lot of your problems, and this is just another example of that. Does anybody else have any
I've been
input?
I've been filling out my 5-year calendar, and I think that it's important to fill it out this year, or even backtrack and fill it out, Willow, because I know you haven't been doing it. Because the thing is, the apocalypse only comes once in a lifetime, right? And 5 years from now, you'll be really interested to see each comment for the time of the apocalypse, you know?
I have been going back and filling out, like, in retrospect, a couple of things. My issue, and I get really irritated at this, is there's actually a bunch of them that are like, what was the last thing you ate today? And I'm like, I don't remember. Or, like, what was your biggest issue today? And I'm like, well, you're going to get the numbers skewed on that a little bit. It's going to be like, oh, this was an issue in March, not April, or,
Yeah.
last year.
Well,
Willow,
I
you just
mean, you can just change the question. Go ahead, Dennis.
Yeah, but Willow just touched on fear, and I think it's so fitting with today's show. So I was just thinking, like, what are the things that we fear most of thinking or even writing down, and those have been like some of the interesting aspects of journaling for me as well, to to kind of be dead honest and straightforward, and think those thoughts that you normally like hold back, and write them down, or write what you think about somebody or something, and it goes like in the direction of I think we talked about that a few weeks ago, about writing down your deepest secrets that you would never tell anybody. And I thought that was fitting, like writing what you're afraid of, and writing your fears, and then maybe also put it the other way around, and then write what brings you in that sensation of love. And then that would be something interesting, I imagine, to compare, like in a year from now, even in a couple of months, or in 5 years from now, what brought you into that space of love today, and what's where you're afraid of.
It's funny that you say that, because the first thing that I wrote when I did the daily negativity dump was, I have a fear that my words will be read and then subsequently used against me. And even though, and I quoted this, I said, even though there is no one in my immediate vicinity, my home, or my personal life who would ever dare to betray me like that, no one I know would ever do such a thing to me, yet that it was still a fear. And it was one of the most prominent things. And I am not going to lie, as soon as I wrote that period behind that, everything else came out. That was the most I wrote. I wrote like this much, and it was just like, all right, cool, we're safe. We're going to write all this down. And I might need to go back and rewrite that sentence again, because that might be an issue why I've stopped writing, because I'm like, I haven't trained my brain that this is a safe place.
Maybe you should start with that sentence every day until it goes away.
And tap on it.
And tap on it.
Do you remember when you said that you have a part that's not happy with doing the same thing every day? I just met my own. Like, literally just I was like, oh, okay, there you are.
I think it's a Sagittarius thing, honestly.
Maybe.
I really do.
Yeah,
Well,
I think I just add, as far as the idea of it being kind of a rigid and logical and kind of accounting type of stuff, where it's more logical than artistic, would be to challenge people to take the artistic side of your brain and go to town on things that might represent the art of who you are, and write a little bit about that. Because I think there's a artistic aspect to journaling that I definitely don't think many people ever visit. But it is something that, like with creative writing and so forth, we all have our stories to tell, and if we don't ever like get into those, we're really never going to know who we are, and it is really an opportunity for us to see, because we are all a concoction of a lot of different things, and even those of us that are look into the artistic side of things, tell your story, tell a story,
And I just wrote down to have the link to Julia Hammeron's The Artist's Way in the description of the podcast, because that's basically what you're talking about. So I have a bunch of stuff to include.
Very nice.
So on Wednesday, I'm going to be sharing a tool on how to move yourself out of fear and into love, or how to move yourself up the emotional scale and create a better reality for you for today, which doesn't necessarily have any influence of bad stuff that may be coming around the corner, but it has everything to do with how you feel right now. And when the better you feel, the less cortisol there is in your body, the less, stress hormones are floating through your veins, the more prepared you can be for whatever bad shit is around the corner, or bad shit, possibly. But that would be guano. But so creating the opportunity for yourself to actually create a better reality for you right now, today. So that's Wednesday, 7:30 Eastern. Our show is 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, North America, not Australia. So that said, is there any other last remarks?
Yes, I'll finish with very long, since I started with him. The whole purpose of existence is to bring love into existence where it is needed.
Ooh. Let's all bring love into existence as we play the outro. Bye! Bye, everybody! We're at the bongos!
More music?
Bye, today's the berimbau.